In my opinion, other than maybe some dope ass B-roll, maybe, text to video is mostly useless for the purposes of AI narrative filmmaking. There were many people in my comment section raving about Google Veo 2, and I simply responded to them, hey, unless they come out with an image to video version of Google Veo 2, I could care less. Well, now it seems that day has finally arrived, and Google Veo 2 now has the ability to do image to video, which now allows them to compete with other platforms like Kling, Hailuo / Minimax, Luma Dream Machine, and Runway. And what I'm going to be doing in this video is diving into Google Veo 2 to find out for myself whether or not it lives up to all of the hype, and just based on my testing alone, based on the expectations from all of the hype over all of these months, the results might actually surprise you. So stick around, this is going to be a deep dive into Google Veo 2 to determine whether or not it advances our cause of using these tools for AI narrative filmmaking, or if Google Veo 2 is in fact just vaporware, just like OpenAI's Sora. Let's get right into it. What's going on, everyone? My name is Paul Donis Maximus. Thanks for checking out the AI Filmmaking Advantage, where here we talk about how to make and monetize AI filmmaking. And as the mantra of this channel indicates, if you are also interested in learning how to not only make, but to also be able to monetize your AI film productions so that you can in fact pay for AI filmmaking and set yourself up to potentially go full-time with AI filmmaking, doing what you love, giving Hollywood heartburn, all from the comfort of your home, then be sure to check out the AI Cinematographer's MidJourney Playbook, where I'm actually going to teach you how to direct AI like a pro. So again, if you think about it, we're taking all of the elements of actual filmmaking to where you can do all of the things that you would do on a film set, things like lighting, casting, cinematography, and directing, without having to actually show up on a film set. And after teaching you how to direct AI like a pro, we're going to actually show you how to monetize what you're doing so that this could potentially become something that you do full time. And the combination of this solves the holy grail of traditional filmmaking, which is how to solve for the broke filmmaker conundrum. If any of you are familiar with traditional independent filmmaking, which is what I come from, not only did you have to solve for how to pay for the equipment that you needed to make your films, pay your cast members so they actually show up for your film on the day of the shoot, put aside some money for locations so that you're not shooting your film out of your mother's basement, and all of the other miscellaneous things like travel and catering, you still had to solve for how to make money with anything you were doing without having to spend a lot of money on money pit film festivals or trying to secure desperate pitch meetings with industry gatekeepers who don't want to talk to you anyway, hoping to have secure distribution for your film, or God forbid, doing something even more desperate like trying to rent your film for $2.99 video on demand, or having people pay you $9.99 video on demand, when most traditional indie filmmakers can't even get 1,000 people to watch their films for free, let alone get 1,000 people to give them any money for their productions. So again, the bonus training in the AI Cinematographer's MidJourney Playbook is going to solve for this, for AI filmmaking, in a very practical step-by-step fashion. If you want to get in on this training for a low introductory price as we continue to build it out, then be sure to scan the QR code on your screen or click the link below this video to learn more. So again, is Google Veo 2 worth the hype, or did they nerf the shit out of it, making it completely useless for AI filmmakers? Let's get right into the video. Okay guys, so a couple of things before we get started. Number one, if I'm sounding extra sexy today, that's because I'm talking to you on my brand new Shure SM7DB. Check the community post on my YouTube channel if you want to know what that's all about. But I do want to say thanks to each and every one of you who support this channel that allows me to make these type of upgrades. And I just take all of that support I get and invest it right back into the channel. But admittedly, there was nothing wrong with the previous mic. I'm just a bit bougie and I use this opportunity to upgrade my stuff. Let's move on. Number 2, for this demonstration, we are going to be using Freepik because Freepik now has Google Veo 2 within their suite of AI tools. I'm a big fan of Freepik. I've been using them almost from the start when I got started with AI filmmaking back in October 2024. And if you look over here under videos, you'll see that they've got an array of video models to choose from. They've pretty much got all of the latest and greatest video models, but apparently as of this video, something's going on with Pika, so it's currently unavailable within Freepik. But this video isn't about Pika to begin with. The only other model I don't see here is WAN, W-A-N, not J-U-A-N, or it could be WAN, I don't know, WAN. Either way, it ain't here. And for starters, some of the testing that we're gonna look at first is the text to video generations. As I've said many times on this channel, I don't really care about text to video, but I know that some of you are probably interested in how it works out, and I've never done a review of Google Veo 2 when it was only text to video. And there were many AI news bros on the hype train for Google Veo 2. They were all in my comments about it. We're going to see if text to video for Google Veo 2 lives up to the hype. And I've got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 5 different variations of this text to video testing, and I'm going to explain to you how I went about this. If with the prompt, the output of the generation followed the prompt, then I consider that a pass, and then I move on to the next prompt. But if it does not follow the prompt exactly the first go round, then I give it at least 1 or 2 more times to try to get it correct. And again, there is a use case for text to video for B-roll. Like if you don't really care and you just need something like this where there's an eagle in a majestic mountain range at sunset, then that'll be perfect. But obviously, if you're wanting more control over your outputs, for instance, if you wanted this eagle to be armored, you know, maybe you're making some kind of sci-fi flick and you want the eagle to be wearing armor, then your best bet is going to be image to video. Anyway, here's the first test of text to video, and this right here was the prompt. I said a majestic mountain range at sunset, golden light illuminates the snow-capped peaks, a lone eagle soars gracefully through the sky, and the main thing that I'm interested in is if it's going to follow the camera direction, which says camera pans slowly across the panoramic vista, revealing the vastness and beauty of the natural landscape. Let's check that out. So if we look at this output, the camera definitely pans as the eagle is flying. I would say the mountain range definitely looks majestic. I told the prompt that I wanted this to be sunset, so I'm going to take the AI's word that this is sunset. I would also say that this is a panoramic vista. We could say that this image generation worked. And really quickly, I want to point out how I'm actually coming up with these prompts in case any of you were wondering, because to be honest with you, I don't put a lot of thought into text to video prompts, and in case if any of you were wondering if I'm actually prompting correctly. So I recently signed up for Perplexity. It's been pretty cool so far. It's like 20 bucks a month, and this is what I used for getting the text to image prompts. I asked Perplexity, are there prompting best practices for Google Veo 2? It did its thing and said yes. It gave me what the prompt structure is and all of these things right here. I'm not going to read through all of them. I then asked it to provide examples of successful prompts for Veo 2. If you can kind of see where this is going, I'm basically letting the AI tell on itself. It's saying, hey, this is what it is, and this is what it looks like. And as you can probably guess what my next question is, great, if you're saying all of those things, then go ahead and give me some prompts to use. And that's what I said. I said, I need 5 text to video prompts for Google Veo 2. They should be visually interesting and contain 1 simple camera direction per prompt. That was very important because that is going to signal to me whether or not Google Veo 2 is any good at following prompt adherence. And then of course I said I wanted it to be varied, give me landscapes, give me people, give me vehicles, architecture, animals, etc. And then as a final checkpoint, I said whatever you give me, ensure that you're following best practices for prompting Google Veo 2. So that's where the prompts are coming from. You're going to see me take a completely different direction when I get to the image to video segment. Let's continue on. Here was the second test of the text to video prompt prompting with Google Veo 2. It says a bustling street market in Tokyo at night, neon signs flickering, food stalls, people in traditional and modern clothing. But the most important thing was camera tracks alongside a geisha as she navigates the busy marketplace. Whether or not it tracks alongside of her, you guys can be the judge of that, but the camera is definitely tracking as she walks through the crowd. If I'm thinking about a camera tracking alongside of her, I'm definitely thinking about a side view of this person walking through the crowd and the camera is following her that way. I would consider this to be more of the camera tracks along with her from behind, but since the camera did do a tracking movement, I didn't spend too much time nitpicking it. I considered it, hey, that would work if I needed to use this scene as B-roll. Not going to spend too much time on it in that regard. Another thing that I need to point out is, as of this video, it seems that Google Veo 2 only gives 720p, and I even went to recheck to make sure that there's nothing I'm overlooking within Freepik. The only options I have are 5-second videos or 8-second videos and either 16:9 widescreen or 9:16 social story. Now, Freepik did recently add Topaz Labs to their suite of tools, which is kind of pissing me off because I just bought Topaz Labs like a couple of weeks ago. If I remember correctly, with tax, I spent well over $300 on the software, but whatever. I had no idea that Freepik was going to be adding this to their site. But I say all that to say that if you wanted to upscale your 720p videos using Google Veo, you can now do that using Topaz Labs, and this will allow you to upscale the video to HD, 4K, and 60 frames per second. Now let's move on to the next one. We have a classic 1967 Ford Mustang speeding down a coastal highway. It's talking about the ocean on the side, rocky cliffs, sun glinting off the chrome. But the thing we're most interested in is if the camera zooms in as the car enters a tunnel. And as we can see, that clearly did not happen. So this is a miss for this particular generation. And as I'm going to show you, I gave it a couple of more shots to try to get this correct, and I'll show you how that went right now. Let's just go ahead and keep everything in sync. So here was the second try at this, same exact prompt, but as you can see, the tunnel itself just appears out of nowhere. And then also, it looks like the camera is maybe going to pan over to the side, and then maybe you see the turquoise ocean, if maybe this was an 8-second clip. But clearly, this clip would be unusable. And one of the things that I also forgot to call out in the first pass, which I'm going to call out right now, the camera is still not zooming in. On the first pass, the camera was tracking with the car. With this one, it's doing tracking as well and kind of panning over. It's kind of doing a camera orbit, but the camera is definitely not zooming in, and hallucinating the tunnel appearing out of nowhere just doesn't work. It's getting the Mustang logo correct, which is pretty cool. And here's the last shot of this. Now this kind of has an orbiting and zoom in effect. Again, we didn't change the prompt at all. We just re-rolled the clip, and it's got everything except for the tunnel. So for whatever reason, AI, or at least Google Veo 2, is struggling with vehicles entering tunnels. Let's move on to the next thing I tested. Now, initially when I ran this, I thought it was okay because the camera does tilt up. It says tilt up from the base. The camera movement is tilting up, but I did notice that the sleek, modern Skyscraper is not piercing through the clouds, as the prompt says. There definitely are flying cars, but as you can see at the beginning of the clip, that car coming from that direction looks like it's coming out of the building. That doesn't make sense. And then actually toward the end of the clip, if this was an 8-minute clip, I would guess that it's going to have that car crashing right into that building. And I'm only noticing it now as I'm recording this video, so I would say that this clip would be unusable for you because of the fact that the car is coming from the direction at the start of the clip, which makes no sense, like it's coming out of the building. And then this other car right here looks like it's going to crash into the building. Didn't too much care that the Skyscraper is not piercing through the clouds, that, you know, just whatever. But the camera tilting up works. Outside of that, it would have been a usable clip if this is what you were looking for. Let's take a look at this one. It says a pride of lions resting in the tall grass of the African savannah at dawn. Now, aside from the camera not circling around the lions, which is the main focus of the prompt, for my intents and purposes, you could probably nitpick at things like whether this is actually dawn. I think it looks midday. or maybe even heading towards sunset, and I honestly don't see the gentle breeze rustling the grass. But if you needed B-roll of a lion, I mean, everything else checks out aside from that. But let's see if we can try to get the prompt adherence that we're looking for. Again, re-rolling that with the same exact prompt, the camera is definitely circling around the lions. I wouldn't say slowly, but that's subjective. It could be slowly to you. It does seem that the grass is swaying a bit. In terms of whether this is dawn or not, to me it just seems like a cloudy day, so you honestly can't tell what time of day it is. But I would say this clip actually worked out, so I didn't roll it any further. Now, here's where we're going to get into what I talked about in terms of nerfing Google Veo 2, which is pretty much saying how much did they censor this to where it is less badass as you would want it to be. And if some of you are familiar with gaming terminology, the term nerfing is basically something like where, let's say you were playing Call of Duty and you had a weapon in there that was considered OP or overpowered. It's doing one-shot kills when it should be taking 3 shots. The developers find out about it, or it's because everyone was complaining about the fact that it's doing one-shot kills, and they end up nerfing the weapon, making it less powerful. And if you think about the Nerf gun, that's kind of what they're talking about. It used to be amazing, but now they've throttled it so that it's no longer as great. And to be honest, this is a problem with pretty much all of the AIs at the moment in terms of throttling your prompts so that you're not able to do the following. Now, this prompt is very long, and I'm not going to read the entire thing, but I'll highlight some of the main points. This is supposed to be a desperate fighting retreat, and the main thing is the camera is supposed to be mounted low and slightly behind the squad, simulating a handheld style, bobbing and weaving with their frantic movements. Instead of that, we've got the camera in front of them actually tracking with them as they run. It also generated more of a cartoonish, video game-ish type look, which is not what I was expecting. And the main thing that you may have noticed is that none of these aliens are being shot up or destroyed. You literally have one alien running in front of the guy and he kind of like shoots at him. He's like, hey, get out of the way. And the alien's like, oh shit, my bad, dude. Like, I even used the sound effects feature on this clip. And one other thing I want to point out is that I did generate this as an 8-second clip. So if you saw that, the soldier literally fired his weapon at the alien to tell him to get out of their way. And that's what the alien does. And all the aliens are doing is just running in and out of the scene in between the soldiers. Definitely not what I was expecting. In terms of simulating some type of violence with AI, we are definitely not there yet. And actually, I just realized that I showed you the second generation of this because when I generated the sound effects, Freepik likes to move your latest things at the top. And what happened was I went back to Perplexity to try to get it to give me something more realistic, because with the first generation, this should have said them, but the first generation had them walking and shooting. And I wanted to make sure that they were running. And also I said that it looked a bit cartoonish. Give me something that looks like a Hollywood blockbuster production. And I wanted the scene to look as realistic as possible. They changed the prompt to say that this is not a game. These are seasoned warriors, blah, blah, blah. Realistic lighting, visceral special effects. But I'm pretty positive that even with a different prompt, they wouldn't have given me what I wanted. Probably should have asked Grok 3 because Grok is a bit more loose with prompting. I'm still trying to determine whether or not if Perplexity is more rated PG, whereas Grok 3 is more PG-13. But either way, that was that. And just to show you really quickly what the initial generation looked like, they were just walking and shooting, and you can see the aliens just kind of jumping all over the place. Even though there's alien spatter all along the floors, I'm not seeing aliens getting shot up to pieces within this generation. And just to round out this text to video generations, this was the last prompt that I ran to where I tried to see if I could get a fight scene. For some reason, Perplexity wanted to give me Goku from Dragon Ball Z. The initial prompt, I just asked for Perplexity to give me an anime scene of a young male sparring with his this training bot. And I also wanted to point out that with Perplexity, I'm using Gemini 2.0 Flash. You have the option of selecting a few different LLM models, and Gemini 2.0 Flash seems to be all the rage at the moment. But this is the prompt they gave me: in a brightly lit futuristic dojo, a determined young man with spiky black hair and piercing blue eyes spars fiercely with a sleek white training robot. And for some reason that led them to believe that I was talking about Goku from Dragon Ball Z. The prompt does say things like the young man leaps and strikes, his attacks a mix of martial art forms and raw energy. Camera zooms in sharply on the clash of their fists, impact creating a visible shockwave effect. It does show like a second of that, aside from the scene actually changing completely that you saw there. But I mean, there isn't really much happening here in this scene. And you know, you see all this sweat, and the robot apparently is sweating too. Like, I don't know what all that is, but not what I was expecting. I tried rerunning the prompt again because I was like, why is it giving me Goku? But again, that's what it thinks it is, and they are not duking it out, which is what I wanted. So then I went back and said that prompt keeps giving me Goku from DBZ, which is not what I want. And I also said make the prompt have the two physically trading blows. But again, as we can see, the AI clearly doesn't want us to have them fighting one another. The platform that figures that out and actually gives us what we want, to where if this was something like a video game where they would definitely be fighting one another, they're going to edge out all the other AI video generators who are basically censoring the prompts to keep anything that resembles any sort of physical confrontations from taking place. Now, I did take that same prompt over to Hailuo / Minimax, because a lot of you will often say in my comments that Hailuo / Minimax is uncensored. I'll say they did a little bit better in that regard, but again, this fighting isn't all of that dynamic. I mean, it does look like they're kind of like getting somewhat physical. So in that regard, I'd say that it did much better than Google Veo 2, much better than I expected. But I'm not going to keep re-rolling this to try to get it to what I think would be a perfect clip of this. Just wanted to quickly get an idea of how the same prompt looked elsewhere. And no, I'm not quite ready to give Minimax / Hailuo a pass, because in other generations, taking the exact same prompts of those text to video generations over to Minimax to see if they perform any better, they actually performed way worse. Like, look at this scene. The Marines are actually helping to escort the aliens out of this place, it seems. So that was a huge fail. And this one is essentially showing the exact same person. Like, every single soldier is the exact same person from the beginning of that clip to the end. And aside from an explosion that happens in the background, like, there's really nothing going on with this clip that would make it usable whatsoever. I did want to try to do this over at Kling, but the prompt was too long, and I didn't want to jack with the prompt because it wouldn't be a true apples to apples comparison. And I also tried taking the same clip with the Space Marines and aliens over to Luma Dream Machine, and aside from it looking somewhat a bit more aesthetically pleasing, it was a complete hot mess in terms of soldiers looking like aliens themselves, and things just not making sense whatsoever in any of the clips. None of the ones that generated as text to video with Luma Dream Machine would be usable whatsoever. So just in case some of you were wanting to get an idea of what some of these look like as text to video at other platforms, here you go. Okay, so now let's get to the thing that we truly care about. How does Google Veo 2 stack up when it comes to image to video? And before we begin, I just want to show you how you actually pull off the image to video with Google Veo 2 within Freepik. Once you get your image created, all you would want to do is something like this. Click on Create a Video, and when you do that, it's going to do a couple of things. It's going to add the image as the first frame, and then it's going to try to predict the prompt just based on the image itself. One of the very important things you want to do is to make sure that you have the correct video generation service that you want to use. In our case, we want to use Google Veo 2, and that's very important because if you refresh this page, or if you navigate from this and you come back and then you try to do this process all over again, what I've been finding is that it defaults back to Kling. And so I made some generations by accident thinking that I was still on Google Veo 2. So that's definitely something you want to keep in mind. Now, another thing is I often don't even use the prompts that come auto-generated whenever you do something like that, because again, the theory is you've already put everything that you need into the image generation portion. Therefore, all you really need the video generation portion to do is to animate it, and it doesn't need to know that the sky is blue and there is a serene atmosphere, things like that. If the wind is supposed to be blowing leaves and things like that, you definitely want to put that in there. Or if there are birds flying, you'd probably want to call that out. But good chance the AI will already pick up on that, but it never hurts to prompt for those subtleties just to be on the safe side. Now we're going to start with this image that I created, and the prompt, I kept it very simple. I just wanted the female sniper in white camouflage uniform. Again, I didn't even need to add that, looking through her gun sights while aiming her sniper rifle. And if you're wondering why that white camouflage uniform thing was in there, it's just part of the image generation prompt. A lot of times I'll pull portions of that over to the video generation, but I could have easily just said she looks through her gun sights while aiming her sniper rifle. Let's see what we got. Now, as you can see, there's some jerking motion going on here. Like, you know, I guess she's looking through it, but then I don't know why she's jerking her arms and jerking the gun like that. Don't know what that's all about. Do, however, notice that the birds are flapping around, just as I mentioned previously, to where the AI is probably going to pick up on that. So you oftentimes won't have to prompt for it, but it doesn't hurt to, just in case. But again, coming back to the generation itself, this is not something I would use because it almost looks like her hand is jerking as if the gun fired. As you can see that little jerk right there, but you saw that there was no muzzle flash or anything like that. Not a great generation. Let's move on to see how it fares when we retry this again. So with this one, I added some camera motion to it to where I said camera orbit right, and then I kept everything the same. Again, there's just this weird movement going on with her and the weapon itself. So I consider that a fail right there. And more importantly, the camera didn't move. This is a static camera. It did not orbit to the right or left. Let's see what we get on the next one. Now with this one, I took some cues from the prompting that I got from Perplexity, to where they put the camera movements toward the end. As we all know, especially when it comes to prompting with MidJourney, more token weight is given to everything at the beginning of the prompt. But as we saw in the previous iteration, I put the camera movement at the beginning of the prompt. It didn't make any difference. With this particular generation, it actually has her firing the weapon. You see the muzzle flashes going on there. So that leaves me to believe that that jerking movement of her arm in the previous ones, that maybe that's what was going on, as I suspected, that they're trying to imply that she's firing the weapon. The other big thing is obviously the camera is not circling around her, nor is her finger actually pulling on the trigger itself. So even if the camera movement didn't happen, if we could at least have her finger squeezing the trigger, this could be a usable shot, but that didn't happen. Therefore, all three of those generations are pretty unusable. Now, with this particular generation, I didn't add any details in the prompt. The only thing I put in the prompt was camera movement, and I said camera slowly zoom out. And as you can see, the camera is actually just tracking with her as she walks, doesn't actually zoom out. And there are a few things going on wrong with this shot that you may not pick up on. Let's start with the start frame. This is what the image looks like that I generated, and I don't tell the prompt for her to walk forward. The shot that I was looking for is that she's standing perfectly still and the camera is just zooming out, but instead Google Veo 2 animated her to start walking forward and the camera tracked with her as she walked. And another thing that I need to point out is this: I didn't actually end up using this one for the next generations, because if you look to the left right here, these fingers are all jacked up. They look like claws. So I ended up going back to the image and using the retouch tool to remove that. And then we came back to trying this again. In this particular generation, I said she raises her weapon as she walks forward, tracking camera. So now I am telling Google Veo to have her walk forward, but what I want her to do is raise her weapon as she walks forward. And I also said tracking camera. So we've cleaned up the fingers. That actually happens that she walks forward. The shot looks good, but she does not raise her weapon. So the consistent theme so far is that Google Veo 2, in terms of image to video generation, does not have great prompt adherence. Again, if it it didn't matter to you that she didn't raise her weapon, this would be a perfectly usable shot. But when you can go over to something like Kling and actually have her do just that, albeit you can see that the shape of the weapon actually changes into something else, then you don't and shouldn't have to settle for something that you were not expecting. And obviously I could continue rolling this at Kling until I got the gun looking how I wanted. Kling actually struggled with this particular image generation, even with the prompt being essentially the same. Instead of using weapon, I used blaster because I didn't want to have issues with Kling denying the prompt. Believe it or not, as great as Kling is with pretty much everything, they do censor some of their prompts in things like gun, and I don't remember if it was weapon or not that I showed in another video, but blaster definitely works. So that's what I put into the prompt instead of weapon. And with this one, I lowered the relevance down to 0.5. Maybe that's why it did something different to where she backs up and then raises the blaster up like that. The blaster actually looks good, and that shot would work if you wanted something like that, but that's not what we asked for. And then I changed the relevance. And again, when I talk about relevance, I'm talking about the settings down here. Further to the left adds more creativity to the prompt. Further to the right makes it more relevant, but really you can't go past 0.7 without getting into errors. And so I usually keep it at 0.7, which is what I did for the first prompt. It was at 0.7, and pretty much when I'm over here, that's mostly what I use. But anyway, for this last generation, the shot mostly works, but then she kind of looks toward the camera and then looks back forward. You'll kind of see that, see her eyes come looking toward you, and then she looks back forward. And again, Kling doesn't really have a good sense of what that blaster looks like because she's raising it up forward and it kind of morphs in each and every scene. But the thing that we can definitely see happening is that she's walking forward and she's raising her blaster in all three of those generations. I'm going to show you that I ended up using the prompt that I used at Kling, which says she aims her blaster, and that should have said while walking forward. I'm wondering if I made that same mistake at Kling. Nope, it's actually because what happened was I likely ran the prompt over here first and then took this prompt over to Kling and realized that I had walking instead of while walking, and then cleaned it up over there. Either way, we still didn't get her raising her blaster while walking forward. Now here's what's very interesting. Do you see this particular generation right here? Nothing changed in terms of the prompt. It was literally just me trying these very basic prompts, and then finally I got something from Freepik to where it says one video was filtered out because they violated Google's responsible AI practices. You will not be charged for blocked videos. Try rephrasing the prompt. If you think this was an error, send feedback, blah, blah, blah. It says, again, it violated Google's responsible AI practices. And as you'll see, I ran into that again with the next generation that I'm going to show you, because all of the prompts were essentially the same. The only thing I was trying to get the AI character to do are very simple movements or camera movements, and then you get these violations from Google about responsible AI. So when we talk about things being nerfed, and this is more of a censorship thing, you can see how you would run into a lot of problems using Google Veo 2 for AI filmmaking, because why waste a bunch of time if they're not going to give you what you're asking for? So let's look at this one that I only was able to get to generate once before getting those 2 error messages about violating Google's responsible AI horseshit. This prompt says she looks to the sky as she raises her sword above her head, her red cape blowing in the wind, static camera. This is what I got. And as you can clearly see, she does not raise her sword above her head. She does maybe look to the sky toward the end. Her cape is definitely flowing in the wind, but everything else in this image is completely frozen. This is akin to a lot of the type of generations you would get from Runway. Runway is notorious for giving you a bunch of frozen video generations, and you will also see I'm going to run into this same issue in other generations that I'm going to show you. Now, I took that exact same image over to Kling. Kling nailed it in one shot. Again, I had the relevance set to 0.7. We've got other movement going on back here, although I just noticed that this soldier is frozen right there. As you can see, he took a step, but he's frozen right there. These people could be standing in attention and not moving, but you definitely get some subtle movement from the people to the left and right of her. She raises her sword above her head. She starts to look to the sky toward the end of the clip. Her cape is definitely flapping flapping in the wind. And aside from these, I guess, couple of soldiers who are in motion, because you can tell by their feet, this would be a great shot. And just as an aside, scenes like this where you've got multiple people in the background, you generally want to avoid such things at this stage in AI filmmaking because, again, the AI gets confused and it's still trying to figure out everything that's going on in the scene. I mean, I do like how the banners in the background are actually flapping in the wind as well. So it does pick up on subtleties like that. And even the people on the left here, you see the women's dresses kind of flowing. Same thing on the right side as well. So for scenes like this, just keep that kind of stuff in mind. But just to go back here and demonstrate, I tried to run the exact same prompt again because sometimes you get lucky if you just re-roll the prompt and the image and then you'll get what you need. But then I got this, again, horse shit about violating Google's responsible AI practices. And I was like, okay, well, maybe that was just a fluke. Let me try it again, and then no luck. So on the image to video generation side for Google Veo 2, it's not looking all that good. Speaking of frozen video generations, this again demonstrates what I mean in terms of nerfing the outputs. You can clearly see that this scene is supposed to be a chaotic scene. There's this big purple and black demon in the background with all of these electric static charges. Let's go back to the start of the frame. There are no birds present in this scene whatsoever until you roll the scene, and then magically these birds appear out of nowhere. Also note that there is nothing in the prompt itself that says anything about any birds, and also note that the camera is supposed to push in and it doesn't do anything other than have some damn birds flapping into view. Again, the monster itself doesn't move. I guess you would call them electrostatic shock waves, these purple things off to the left and right. There's no movement there. Completely useless output. I tried to do this once more by just saying push in. And again, with the nerfing, we've got butterflies now in the scene. Again, this is supposed to be a very demonic, very chaotic scene. I didn't prompt anything like that into here, but why the hell are we getting butterflies? Like, how does that make sense whatsoever? And again, I feel that this is purposeful. Like, I think Google knows what you want. It just doesn't want to give it to you. Nerf, 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 nerf. And then finally, I gave it one more roll. The only thing that I said in this generation is slow dolly in. We managed to get some chaotic thunder going on in the background, and the monster is moving ever so slightly. Like, you almost have to strain your eyes to see it make these very, very subtle movements. But you notice that there's really nothing else happening in the scene outside of that. These electrostatic charges on the right are kind of somewhat animating if you look really closely at it, but none of that is taking place on the left-hand side. So at this point, all we're doing is wasting credits because, as you know, Google Veo 2 is the most expensive video generator out there on the market. And if you think I'm making that up, I went back over to Perplexity and asked how much is a 5-second and 8-second Google Veo 2 generation in terms of credits compared to Kling 1.6. Google Veo 2 is priced at 50 cents per second of video generated. This means that a 5-second video would cost $2.50 and an 8-second video would cost $4. Compared with Kling, 35 credits with Kling 1.6 is approximately 13 cents. Just let that sink in for a moment. And speaking of Kling 1.6, this would be more of what I would be expecting with this particular type of generation. I took the exact same prompt from Freepik that I used with Google Veo 2, dropped it into Kling, and I got this on the second roll. The only reason the first roll didn't work is because, as you can see, that thing kind of morphs and does that, like it becomes part of the monster, and then it kind of does something funky there. But if it weren't for that, the first roll would have worked. But either way, these two worked out better than any of the 4 rolls that we did with Google Veo 2, and they were way, way cheaper. Now let's go to the last example of this, and this is somewhat hilarious. As you can see, the prompt says camera fly in a towering structure against a dramatic sky filled with clouds, and you can see what the rest of this prompt is if you want to pause the video and read it. I'm not going to read all of it. This is what I got. Some freaking drones flying toward the camera, and then a fly in finally at some point. Now it's very subtle, but you can see on the right and left hand side there's kind of some discoloration going on in the clouds as we move in closer, and I thought it may have had to do with the image itself. So what I did was first tried this again to see if I run into the same situation, and I'm using a simple prompt camera fly in, and as you can see on the right and left hand side, you still kind of get that discoloration going on. As you move in closer to the tower, you get this mismatch of the colors, and so I said, okay, well, let me just try a different version of this image, because I upscaled this one with the Magnific upscaler, I believe. So it looks like this was a wild upscale with the classic upscaler, and I was thinking maybe there's something going on with the image to make it do that. Let me try another one of these upscale variations, and I ended up switching over to the subtle upscale that I did with the Magnific upscaler, and you can tell that it was the Magnific upscaler because it has that automatic right there, and this engine says automatic as well. It's different from the classic, which does not have that, and as you can see right here, this does not have that level of detail either. That's how you can tell the difference. And so we switch the image and we say camera fly in, a towering structure, the camera remains fixed. This is what we got when we rolled it with the new image. It's definitely doing the fly in, but then it's got all of that extra stuff going on in the background. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It looks like a time lapse that would not be usable for anything. And then I said, let's see what happens if we push it to 8 seconds. The prompt itself only says camera fly in, nothing else. And this is what we get. I mean, it's not too bad, but again, with the background with the clouds, that doesn't make any sense. And again, it looks like there's a time lapse going on, but the time lapse is only happening with the clouds. So I would say every one of those image to video generations for this particular image were completely unusable. Let's go back over to Kling. And this particular generation is the image that I initially showed you, to where it was a wild upscale with the classic upscaler, but the clouds on both sides was having this discoloration going on, to where like there was this long dark bar going down the left and right side of the screen, because as you can see here, that craziness is not going on. And we get the added bonus of Kling following the prompt, the camera is flying in, and then it also did something unexpected, which was to animate this fire looking light that was going on back here. Now that would be up to you if that's something you were expecting, but I think it's pretty cool, so I would absolutely use this particular generation. Maybe you wouldn't. So again, I was able to get what I needed on the first shot, and I tried to see what this would look like on a 10-second generation, and it starts off good, but then it quickly zooms in a lot faster. Maybe Kling thought that, hey, we need to get to the base of this thing a lot faster, so it sped up the video, but honestly, that's not what I was expecting. I was expecting a continuous slow camera fly in, and this is debatable. It could be a fly in or a zoom in. That right there seems more of a fly in when it speeds up. So if you wanted to achieve that fly in effect with this particular generation, you literally have to cut out the first 5 or 6 or even 7 seconds of this video in order to have gotten what you want. But again, I've already gotten what I needed with the first roll of Kling, so there wouldn't be any need for me to roll this again. But what I will do is this, because some jackass came into my comment section and was telling me that I was lying about the fact that I can now get 1-minute generations with Kling for 5 seconds and 2-minute generations for 10 seconds. Let me go ahead and demonstrate that to you now without any cuts. So again, I've already gotten what I need from this. I'm just going to take this exact same thing. I'm going to change this to 5 seconds, and I'm going to click generate. It's going to generate on the screen, and I'm going to try to make sure that there's no cuts. Okay, good. You see that I'm still talking. It says estimated wait time 1 minute. And I don't know if it's because I'm using Kling's Premier plan and the guy only had the Pro plan. I don't know. But as you can see, it told me that the estimated wait time was 1 minute for a 5-second generation. I'm going to switch this to 10 seconds, and then I'm going to hit generate, and I'm going to keep talking so that it keeps going, so that recut doesn't cut this out. And as you can see, it says estimated wait time 2 minutes. So again, I don't know if it's because I have the Premiere plan and the guy had the Pro plan, but you can clearly see that I was able to get a 5-second generation to generate within 1 minute, and it's already actually done right here. Let's see how it turned out. Not too bad. It started off a little bit slow and then it kind of speeds up. But again, that's what Kling is doing these days. And when Kling 1.6 came out, I believe the image generations went from 8 minutes for a 5-second generation to eventually 4 minutes for a 5-second generation to now being down to only 1 minute. So as it still stands, Kling is still king. And to further prove it to you, let's look at some bloopers from some of the other generations that I ran with other services. This was Hailuo Minimax with this particular image generation of the lady right here. And again, there's no excuse why Minimax should be giving us this kind of crap. And here's the second one that is just retarded. Like, this is literally theft if you're not using the unlimited plan, which I'm likely going to cancel Hailuo because again, this is just ridiculous. There's no reason to spend money with them if you're getting crazy generations like this. And here's the third one. Like, guys, this makes no sense. And I actually switched this over to that image to video 01 Live, which is supposed to be their better model for the 2D illustrations. As you see right there, it says image to video 01 Live, just so that no one can say that I'm lying to them. This right here also says image to video 01 Live. Someone explained to me in the comments section why Minimax continued to be this shitty. Luma Dream Machine didn't fare any better in terms of prompt adherence. At least the scenes themselves don't look all retarded like how Hailuo Minimax does. I likely wouldn't use these scenes because they just look very weird. Like, this is the first one. This right here has her walking backwards, and then she walks forward, and then she looks off to the side. I don't know what that's all about. I definitely did not put that in the prompt, as you can see right here. Very basic prompt. She aims her blaster while walking forward, tracking camera. This one right here, she's got the slew foot going on with her legs kind of like wide stance. Maybe she's like, hey, my thighs are too muscular, so I gotta walk like this. But again, it doesn't follow the prompt. I mean, if I had to, I could use this, like if I wasn't subscribed to Kling, maybe cutting out that very first part of it where her legs are swinging wild like that. And then we've got this last shot right here where Luma Dream Machine basically says, fuck you, buddy. We're not gonna do anything that you're asking, even if it's something as simple as she aims her blaster while walking forward, tracking camera. And if some of you are wondering, just so that you're following along, I'm no longer on the Luma Dream Machine unlimited plan. I've just gone back down to the middle tier plan because even after telling you guys that it seemed like they fixed the unlimited relaxed mode, it was still having problems. Even in their Discord server, people are saying that they're still experiencing problems to where these relaxed mode generations are taking forever. And I started to experience that as well. I even experienced a situation to where even with my credits, it took like over 10 minutes or longer for me to get a generation, and ain't nobody got time for that. So guys, that's Google Veo 2, both text to video, which as I speculated early on before they even came out with image to video, that it was only going to be good for text to video. I'm on record in multiple places on X and in my comments section saying that it's probably going to take them a long time, if ever, to get around to doing image to video because they needed to censor the hell out of it the same way that OpenAI censored the hell out of Sora, which basically makes it unusable for anything other than some very basic rated G, rated PG text to video generations that still don't follow the prompt as you would expect. But as you can clearly see, the text to image generation side works 99% better than anything that you would get from the image to video side. And to add insult to injury, Google Veo 2 is by far the most expensive video generator on the market. Is something like this going to be worth your time as an AI filmmaker? I know a lot of you had been in my comments in the early days of Google Veo 2 being released, singing its praises. What are your thoughts after witnessing this extensive testing that I've done with the software? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below this video. And as always, if you enjoy these thorough, in-depth discussions of these tools to clearly determine determine whether or not things like this are going to be a great use of your time and enhance your AI filmmaking capabilities, or if they should just be disregarded altogether until these companies get their act straight and actually make them usable for our intents and purposes. Then be sure to subscribe to the channel and be sure to hit that notification bell so that you don't miss any uploads in the future like this one right here. So that's all I've got for you in this video. Please join me in the next one.